Steel toes on the gravel, thermos by the door, kids art on the dashboard, same route as before. Cornfields like a calendar, mile markers as my clock. Lunch in a parking lot, talking weather, talking stock. Middle America logistics, we make the map make sense. Moving every broken box, every big idea in a fence. Names not on the billboard, but we're the ones that get it there. Middle America logistics, we're the backbone in the air. Scanner on my belt loop, barcodes in my dreams, forklifts doing slow dance between the yellow seams. Sign right here, small talk. How's your mom, how's the game? Faces change at every dot, but the handshake feels the same. Middle America logistics, we make the map make sense. Moving every broken box, every big idea in a fence. Names not on the billboard, but we're the ones that get it there. Middle America logistics, we're the backbone in the air. Storm line on the radar, snow dust in my hair. Boss says, can you make it? I'm already halfway there. All these pallets, all these stories, tied down with nylon straps. Somebody's hoe on a trailer, rolling past the county maps. Middle America logistics, we make the map make sense. Moving every broken box, every big idea in a fence. Names not on the billboard, but we're the ones that get it there. Middle America logistics, we're the backbone in the air.
Hello, Sage. This is Cody, or how, wait a minute. Is my name, Cody or Colby? I'm not really sure. So, I will, there in fact, internally. Hang on a second. God damn it. I'm trying to, wait a minute. I think your name might be Sully. I don't fucking know what your goddamn real name is. Alright, give me a call back.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
All right. I'm waiting. Waiting.
Sage.
Well,
I'm sorry.
it's okay.
Please don't record this.
I will not record this. I will not record this. I am back. I am back. I know I'm doing a Tuesday show. The only reason I'm doing a Tuesday show is because Monday I couldn't do a show. And we're going to talk about that for a second or two. Probably more than a second or two. Probably like 15 minutes because it's a good story. It's pretty funny. And I have to, at sometimes, basically belittle myself a little bit because if I, it just has to happen. It just has to happen, basically. But I normally was going to do trucking on Mondays and Fridays, but since we didn't show up on Monday, we're just going to start the party here. Hold on, let's, uh-oh.
Hey.
What?
You are not Kevin Costner.
Very true. That is a true statement, and we're going to start the show out with a true statement because that's the way every show should basically start out, is with true statements, and they continue those true statements on. So I was going to start basically doing Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and Wednesdays is going to be my normal reaction. Not so much trucking related. Mondays and Fridays we're going to be trucking related, but we have a little story to tell you. I have a little story to tell you. Let me tell you a story about a man named Sage. A poor Mainer, barely kept his family fed. Then one day there was a snowstorm hitting the property, and it all went awry from there. Now that's not exactly how the song went, but I just changed it over. So you all know about the storm that came storming through your neighborhoods, most likely, and a bunch of other neighborhoods. Well, let's just say I did not properly do a pre-trip situation, and it went awry. So Sunday, we had nothing going on here, and basically, it started to snow somewhere around 7 o'clock at night. Okay, now I'm up here in pre-Canada. Formerly known as Maine, and because I'm way up here, and basically it started to snow somewhere around 7 o'clock. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I've got a tractor, right? And I normally plow snow with my tractor. A little tractor. It's just got a bucket, and I just push the snow with the bucket and scoop it and dump it over to the side. I said, well, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I mean, now it has been pretty cold. It was down to like negatives and -10 and stuff like that. It has been pretty cold. And basically I said, well, I'll still be fine. I'll just fire up the tractor. Now, it is a diesel tractor, so it is a little bit trying to get it up and running. But I went out there at around 5:30-ish in the morning, Monday morning. I'm like, I'm just going to plow this, get this all done, and I'll be able to do my show. No big deal. Well, that's how the story always starts. But then you end up going down a different path. So I went out to start to get the tractor started, and I went out there, all bundled up in 17 layers of clothes, approximately weighed 72 pounds, and I started to try to put the key in the ignition of the tractor. Now, it has a little cover over the top, so you really shouldn't have a problem. Would you stop it? So you shouldn't have a problem, but that didn't work. So I pulled the cover off, put the key in, frozen. Couldn't get the key down in there. Said, well, this is taking forever. How am I going to do this? I know, a torch. That's right, he said to himself, a torch. So I went out there and got the little gas clicker thing, torch there, and started to heat up the key, and then got the key to go into, finally got it down to go into the ignition. Problem was, even though that the key was in there, I still couldn't turn the key because the actual ignition was frozen. So I thought to myself, how am I going to get the key to turn? And I said to myself, a torch. And my answer for everything seemed to be a torch. So I thought to myself, well, if I just hold it far enough away, it won't melt any of the rubber or plastic around the, ignition switch for the tractor. Now, that distance was completely unknown to me until I started to figure out that's too close. So I basically melted some of the plastic around the ignition switch, but I did get the key to turn, and that's all that was important at this very moment. We'll worry about the plastic later. We have duct tape. So I started to turn the key, and I did not hear, it's a diesel engine, and diesels have these little glow plug things that help a diesel start. I did not hear the ticking of the glow plug. Normally it goes tick, 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 and that's the exact sound. No, I'm not going to repeat it. I don't care how much you pay me. But basically what happened was there was no ticking. So when I went to start the tractor, it said, denied, Sage. I will not start for you this morning. And all the way down to the battery said, I'm now dead. So I said, well, great. How do we fix this problem? Oh, I know. Go start the truck. Thankfully, my wife, genius that she was, she started the truck the day before and got it kind of up to temp and everything else, so that one was good. So I was able to start the truck. All right, this story gets better. Don't you fret. This story gets even better. So I basically said, not a problem, fine. I will pop the hood with the truck, grab the jumper cables, and I will jump the tractor. So all I have to do is pop the hood of the tractor, and I'll be able to jump the jumper cables from one to the other, and we'll be good to go. Well, the hood was frozen on the tractor. And you reach underneath, it's got this little lever. I go to pull the little lever, and it's frozen solid. So I think to myself, how can I fix this frozen lever problem? What did you think I came up with? That's right. I know, a torch. Yeah, I know, it's getting better. So I said, I'll just torch this little switch down here, and I'll be able to, just hopefully it'll fall the lever out where I can then pop the hood and be able to get the jumper cables on the tractor so I can continue to plow my driveway and continue on with my day and do my show. Well, let me tell you something. I started to torch that thing, got a little hot, and then, of course, I didn't notice that it was a little hot until I placed my gloves on it and burnt through my glove. Who would figure that that's how hot I got it? Finally, I was able to pull the handle. Perfect, handle pulls. Now, of course, you would think that the hood would pop right open because that wouldn't also be frozen, so that I couldn't pop the hood to basically get that thing open and be able to put the jumper cables on. So, of course, the hood was also frozen and the latch wouldn't open. So how do you think I was able to get the frozen hood unfrozen from the latch? I know most of you are going to figure this out, but if you said a torch, you'd be wrong. You'd be wrong on that one because at that point, prior to that, I was trying to hammer the top of the tractor and bang on it to see if it would free up, and I actually broke, because plastic is brittle in the negative 10 degrees, I actually broke the plastic that is in the hood that holds the light bulb, the headlight in, so the headlight fell out of the tractor, and all of the plastic around that basically broke with it. So I didn't need a torch for that one. But on a good note, that left me a huge hole where a headlight would be that I could basically reach in and put the jumper cables. Win for me! My wife's actually kind of pissed off about that because it's not a cheap tractor. Anyways, I was able to then reach in and throw the jumper cables on. Don't you worry, the story's going to get better because this would be... I'm not so much of a genius. I finally get the thing running, and I charge it up, and after numerous times that now remember, I left the key in the ignition, and I left the ignition switch on, because the battery's dead anyway, so who cares? So I go to turn the key again, and guess what happened to the ignition? That's right, everyone. It is still frozen. So it froze in the on part of having the ignition. So, of course, I can't turn the key, so how do you think I would answer that problem? If you said a torch, you would be right this time. Okay. Again, using a torch to basically heat up the ignition just enough so I can turn the key. Perfect. Got the key turning. Got the old tractor started. Not a problem. We are good to go now, baby. It's only 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:15, about 45 minutes in negative 10 degree weather. Fingers frozen. Tractor plastic broken. But it's running. And that's all that mattered because I got about 2 foot of snow. And I am not shoveling my driveway, which is about half a football field, downhill, basically. It's got a very steep grade. I'm not shoveling that. That's just not going to happen. And, of course, we get a lot of deliveries. Why? Because we don't go nowhere, and we get everything delivered. All right, let's move on. So this was all Monday. So then I said, okay, not a problem. Now, some of the gauges, when it's really, really cold, they don't work that well, right? They just, I don't know. Battery's not doing so well. Right now at this present moment. So some of my gauges, like it takes some time to warm up, then my RPM gauge will go up, the temperature gauge goes up, but then the fuel gauge will go up. But sometimes it takes a little bit for everything to start functioning properly before that happens. So I look at the fuel gauge, and the fuel gauge says, well, we're a quarter of a tank. We're a quarter of a tank. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run down, clear the driveway, come back up, and then clear the shed, because I've got multiple sheds on my property. I'll clear the shed where I have the diesel fuel. So I'm going to let this thing warm up, give it, and then run it down. Now, remember, I am currently on level ground, and I'm at quarter of a tank. Now, remember, I used to drive trucks. Thank God I didn't fly airplanes. So I said to myself, well, I've got a steep driveway. It's a very downhill, steep driveway, and I'm just going to run. I'm going to get some momentum and start pushing this snow down the driveway, because I'm going to have to get some momentum, because it's like I said, it's 2 foot of snow. It's a very steep driveway. I've only got a bucket on the front. I don't have a plow on the front, so I can't angle it to the right or to the left. I just push it all to the bottom and into the street and across the street, because I'm out here in the woods. Anyways, not a problem. Well, little did I think of that the angle that I would be heading down the driveway would basically cause all of the fuel to rush to one side of the tank, leaving the part that the fuel pump pulls the fuel from completely empty. That's right. Get down to the bottom of the driveway, and I go to turn around, and now I've got no fuel in the tank, and basically it's starting to stall out, and I now have to make it up the driveway, which that's not going to be any good, because I'm not going to do it. So I'm starting to step on the pedal, like the gas pedal, but it's not really a gas pedal. I start to step on the pedal to make it go, and the tractor says, nope, I don't think so. We are going to run out of the driveway almost in the middle of the goddamn driveway. So I've got to get the goddamn tractor out of the middle of the driveway, because if I've got to move it to one side or the other, because if I leave it in the middle of the driveway, I could be screwed here. I could be screwed. So just in case I can't get it restarted again, I still have to be able to go get, whatever I need to get this thing up and running. If I got to run to the store and get any type of diesel treatment. Anyway, I got to get inside the driveway. Something's telling me don't leave it in the middle of the driveway. Besides my wife probably yelling from the window, don't leave that in the middle of the driveway. Okay, got it. I've got to. Okay. No, she didn't really do that. So I basically got it to the side of the driveway before it completely stalled out and died. So now I've got a TED tractor at the bottom of the driveway. I'm like, fine. I will go up, because I got to get the truck down the driveway, because remember, the battery's dead. So if I've got to get the truck down the driveway just so I can re-jump the tractor, right? So I got to get it. All right, not a problem. So I walk back up my steep driveway, which this could be a Chevy Chase movie. I find out that the driveway underneath the snow is pretty iced up, because it was negative 10 degrees. And how do I find this? By falling on my ass. Twice. Okay. So I finally made it up the driveway, at the final phase of the driveway, giving up and just saying, fuck it, I'm just going to crawl these last few steps until I get on level ground, because I'm already pissed off with freezing cold, basically hands frozen, so marred that they hurt, and I didn't think to myself, fine, let me just go get this diesel can, and we're going to fill this up. Head into the shed where the diesel can is. I know it's a long story, but we're just about done. Well, no, actually, now it still gets better. Where the diesel can is, and I grabbed the can, and wouldn't you know, it wasn't frozen where I had to use a torch, but it was empty. It was empty. I had forgotten, because my truck was broke for a month. And I thought to myself, as soon as my truck gets fixed, I'm going to have to take my gas cans for generators and my diesel can for the tractor and make sure I go get them filled. But my truck was broke for a month, so I wasn't able to do that. I forgot that the diesel can was completely empty. Now, I now have an empty diesel can, a tractor at the bottom of the driveway, ran out of fuel, and 2 foot of snow. So I thought to myself, great. So I'm going, and I'm also wearing 72 pounds of clothes, and I look like an ice officer invading Minnesota. Okay? I got masks on. I got gloves on. I'm not carrying body armor, but I might as well have been. I've got heavy jackets on, and I'm wandering around, and I said, screw it. We're going to have to go to the gas station. What time is it? 6:30. Perfect. Now, it's been an hour since I've been out there trying to get this thing to plowed. All right. Well, at least they're open. So I take the gas can, I stick it in the back of the truck. Now, I say, fine, I got to go upstairs, get my wife, because my wife can't be without me. She has separation anxiety and stuff, so if I have to go to the store, she has to go with me, and she's still sleeping. This ought to be good. So I'm not taking 72 pounds of clothes off. I'm just going to take my boots off, and I'm going to walk upstairs looking like I'm, like I said, an ICE agent without a warrant invading the house. Thankfully, my wife's from this country, and she's not an immigrant. All right. I head upstairs. where basically every one of the cats are like, holy shit, it's ice, run away, run away. So I've got cats jetting everywhere, and I'm obviously already frustrated and pissed off, and I guess I stomp my feet when I do that, but I feel I stomp my feet no matter what I do. And I head upstairs. I head up all the stairs, and I'm walking in snow pants that I have not tightened up to pull the string because I didn't think I was going to have to do that. So my snow pants are basically, and I've got 3 layers of pants on, my snow pants start to fall down to my knees, and I trip, and I hit my knee on the stairs, and basically hurt my wrist. For the love of God! Okay, I'm better now. So then I go upstairs, I continue to walk upstairs, and of course, cats scatter. Because I might have yelled out a few choice words in regards to this whole situation at that moment, and cats scatter. Even cats that I didn't even know we had basically scattered. So then I basically say, okay, I go into the room, risking instant death because I'm coming into the room pissed off in full ice Minnesota gear, and I'm going to try to wake my wife up from a dead sleep, and hopefully I don't get unalived because I got to make a decision here. So I know where one of the alleged pew-pews are. I'm going to go on that side to make sure I block that side and basically figure this out. Not a problem. I go there. Wake up my wife to find out there's also a pew-pew under the pillow, which I was completely unaware of. Okay. New rules. New rules in the house after that. Scare the shit out of her. And basically tell her we have to go to the gas station because I'm out of gas and the tractor's down at the bottom of the road and it's ran out of gas and I can't get it up the driveway and I can't finish plowing the 2 feet of snow, so we're going to have to go. Shut up, get in the truck. I didn't really say shut up, but I was that angry. Because I already know what she was going to say, which she would be right to say. Okay. Perfect. Now I get in the truck. We basically got the truck warming up. I've got that warming up. I'm clearing the 2 feet of snow off the truck, off the back of the truck, off the top of the truck, blah, 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 so I'm not driving down like a big snowball as I make my way to the gas station. So, we show up at the gas station. Thank God I was the only one there, where I ended up topping off the pickup truck and topping off the 5-gallon of gas. And I said, fine. Now, I'm sorry. Let's back up. Let's back up. So, I've only got, now remember, the tractor is also partially in the driveway, at the bottom of the driveway, okay? Blocking a portion of the driveway. I am now driving down a very steep grade. I'm in 4-wheel drive, but it doesn't matter. A very steep grade driveway with my pickup truck in like first gear. Like it's not a standard, but all the way automatic, all the way down to 1. Because my driveway is icy. And in my head, this would be a perfect moment for my karma to say, slide down the driveway and hit the front of the tractor with the front of the pickup truck, destroying the pickup truck that I just got back after putting $2,000 into repairing the pickup truck. That's going through my head like, this is going to happen, right? I mean, I've got this angels that sit on my shoulder, and I don't know if they're angels or if they're just 2 devils fighting over positioning, okay? Because they seem to basically say, you're going to slide down that driveway and hit that tractor, right? You know that's going to happen, right? I mean, it's inevitable. All right. Now, on the one side of my driveway, there's a ditch, okay? So I have 2 choices here. So I'm going down the driveway like each. It probably took me, I don't want to say 15 minutes to go half a football field, okay? And I get all the way down the driveway, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it past the tractor. You got to get out. You got to get out. And, of course, my wife looks at me with an eye basically saying, I have to get out. It's negative 10 degrees outside. Yeah. Yep. You got to get out. And she's got to go over there in front of the tractor to make sure that I don't go in the ditch, which is fully covered with snow, so I have no idea where the ditch is. And the tractor, which is big and orange, and I know exactly where that is. So she guides me out, and I'm talking just clear this tractor, okay? I just clear the tractor to get out in the middle of the street, and my wife jumps back in the truck, and we drive our way down to the gas station to fill the gas containers. Okay, perfect, roll up. Gas container out of service. There was one. Thank God there was one. But there was one that both did diesel and gas, so I ended up topping off the gas and the diesel. And and ended up leaving the gas station $100 less money in my pocket, which I didn't care at that moment. I just had to get the driveway plowed. Perfect. Make it back to the driveway, and I pull alongside. I'm like, hey, you're going to have to walk up the driveway because I have to leave the truck down here because I have to top off the truck, and I also have to jump the tractor because the battery's toast because, this is my life. So the battery must be toast. So just if it was anything else, it wouldn't be me. So I say, okay, let's go ahead and, she's going to walk up the driveway. So she walks up the driveway, and of course, she locked the door when we left. I've got the keys, so I'm topping off the tractor, and I'm setting up the jumper cables, and I can see my wife standing at the door, waving her arms like she's flagging down, pedestrians in situation. I've got the keys to unlock the door. She never took the keys to unlock the door, so now I've got to walk up, and she's not coming down. I've got to walk up the driveway to bring her the keys to unlock the door, where I at least consistently slip twice. Now, my wife has these metal spikes on her shoes that she pulls on and walks around on ice, and she leaves those on her shoes, right? So she can just, not a problem with ice. I do not. So at least I stayed consistent to my falling down efforts and fell down twice, which at the second time, I just decided to make a snow angel just for the hell of it. Because I was in that type of mood, and this is what happened. Fine, give her the keys, unlock the door, go back down to the truck and the tractor. Make my way back down to the truck and to the tractor, and I finally get it all topped off with fuel, finally get the jumper cables on it, where I still cannot open up the hood, but I didn't have the torch. I was about ready to torch it all at that point. But I decided not to. So I went down and started the tractor, and I'm like, we're good to go. Finally. And then the tractor stalls. That's right. Because why in the hell would a tractor stay running? For me, when there's this 2 foot of snow, tractor will run nonstop when it's not needed. But when it's needed, no, that's not running. So what happened was, there's a little small wire in there that goes on the rail that basically activates, I don't know what it does. I'm not a mechanic. All I know is that when this wire's broken, it won't stay running. So, again, remember, I can't open up the hood. The sun's not out. It's still snowing outside. It's got 2 foot of snow. My hands are freezing, and I'm messing around to try to get this wire. And if I bend it one way, it'll stay running. But I can't leave my hand in the engine through this hole where the headlight is broken. So I have to go back up to the garage, up the icy driveway, to get zip ties. Where I fell twice. I did. I am not lying about that. I fell a total of 6 times doing this. One of them was a complete Chevy Chase throw everything fall. But the other ones were pretty controlled falls because I got the hang of it the other times. So I finally get down there, come back down the driveway. I was thinking about just getting concrete and a sled and just sledding down the driveway. But knowing my luck, I would have went out the road. And the only time where there would have been traffic would have been when I got to the road and I would have been run over by a snowplow. Because that was the day I was having. So then I basically said, okay, we're going to zip tie this thing and I can get it up and running. Perfect. We've got it up and running. Perfect. So I finally get the tractor up and running, and we start trying to get up the top of the driveway. And even though I've got a 4-wheel drive tractor, it's icy. I'm having a hard time getting up the fucking driveway. So I decide to basically drive off, a little bit off to the side where I know there's grass, and basically end up getting up the driveway. Well, there was more than a little bit of grass. It actually found a spot that it was kind of a ditch and almost rolled the tractor, where I was able to kind of lean one way and kind of pull the tractor based being stable again, and then use the bucket to stabilize myself, and then use the bucket to pull myself out of that little ditch situation and become stable again. At this point, I probably wet my pants because rolling a tractor would have been very bad. I didn't have the roll bar up. And even rolling with the roll bar up is pretty much not a good idea. And then I decide, fine, perfect, beautiful. I was able to then finish plowing the driveway, where I then parked the tractor, and that would be the end of the story. And then I came in the house and tried to do the dishes where the pipes were all frozen. So I had to go in the basement and then thaw the pipes with a blow dryer. Well, not blow dryer. Blow dryer was upstairs. But downstairs, I use a heat gun where I thaw elbows that normally freeze because it freezes up here. Did everybody get all that, or do you need me to start over? Because I'm not starting over. I'm probably going to live with those memories for months, to be honest. Months, I'll tell you. So, I missed Monday. You know. And now it is, after plowing this morning with very little problems other than still having to use the torch, but I've gotten better with the torch. I know the distance I need to stay away now. It is now sunny outside, and it is not snowing. What's the temperature? But it's still only 10 degrees, but it is sunny outside, and it is not snowing. So I think the whole ordeal is done. Hope you got all that. That was it. Okay. Now you know why I wasn't here on yesterday, why I'm going to be here today. My normal, actually, not, you know what I think too? I think what I'm going to start doing is not doing Mondays. I know. I think I'm going to start doing Tuesdays. Because, hear me out, I get a freight update on Mondays from various places. So, I can then use that information to do a show on Tuesday. And kind of tell you what's going on with the economy and what's going on with trucking and stuff like that on Tuesday. But that, oh, Jesus Christ. Confirm the controller. What's wrong with my controller? Yeah, confirm the controller. Okay. That was Monday. So, and this morning I went out and plowed. We're good to go. We are good to go. We got like 2 foot yesterday and about another foot. No, 2 foot Sunday, another foot last night. So about 3 foot of snow is out there. Approximately. Just so you guys all know. Nah! Sounds like every day. It sounds like the day you have every day. For the love of God. And I listen, there are times that I have, like I said, everybody has these angels or whatever you want to call them on their shoulders. I just call mine, maybe not angels. But this is going to be a bad idea. And you're like, it's a bad idea, right? Yes. But you shouldn't be doing this, right? Yes. But you're going to do it anyways? Yes. And I go ahead and I do it. I just do it. I do it. And then I think to myself, yeah, look, I was right. Well, actually, I wasn't right. He was right. And it is a bad idea. So now I got to probably replace some of the dash. Well, I got to replace that headlight. I don't think I have to replace the hood because the hood's metal. But where the headlight, when it came through the hood, was all plastic, and plastic is very brittle. I'll have to replace that this summer, and I'll probably have to get a new glow plug, which allows diesel to start easier. I'm going to have to get a new glow plug, which is fine. They're not expensive. It's just the fact of the matter is that it ain't work. And a new battery. I'll need a new battery this year for the tractor. But I've had the tractor for like 10 years, and I think I've only changed the battery once before. About 4 years ago, so the batteries last pretty good. But anyways, and I'm running out of wood, so I'm gonna have to chop wood in the middle of the season. Well, I'm not really chop. I'm gonna split wood and then use a chainsaw because I'm running out of wood. So it's been an interesting year. Okay, let us move on to some of the stuff I wanted to cover today. So I'm going to talk about this more tomorrow, but remember, tomorrow you got to be there live because after the show, the Wednesday show goes to members only. So I have a couple levels of memberships. Membership, I think my cheapest membership is like 99 cents a month, but the Wednesday videos are, after they're done live, they're going to go to members only. So something to think about. If you miss it, tomorrow's show, you'll have to catch it on the replay, but you have to pay 99 cents a month. Anyways, I'm going to cover this tomorrow in regards to the unaliving event in Minnesota. I'm going to make a statement today, which will be how I kind of treat the show going forward. Now, normally this is a call-in show, which I have not turned the phones on yet, and I don't even know what I do with the phones. Oh, hi on TikTok. I'm also on TikTok right now, which eventually you guys are going to be able to click in on TikTok also, and you can join the show. But hello there on TikTok land. Okay. The unaliving event in the recent one, I'm trying to stay where the names and stuff or don't flag me, in Minneapolis was a wrong shooting. It was not a justified unaliving event. It was the cops did not do the right thing, and the video evidence shows this. If people want to call in, most likely tomorrow, not really today, but if you're going to call in and I ask you if that was a justified police action, and you say yes, I don't want to talk to you. I know that sounds kind of harsh. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I've got to draw a line in regards to the crazies and the cult that I allow up here. If you can't take that in, now if you say yes, but there's some circumstances, that's fair. If you just say yes, 100%, then I'm going to just toss you. I am not going to give airtime. I'm not going to give video time any longer to the 100% cult-like following of events. I'm just not going to do it. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to interact with those type of people. I don't want to interact with the ones like Goldfish that, no matter what, everything, the cult following. But if you're willing to have a conversation, that's different. I want to have discourse. I want to have discussions. I want to have that type of conversation. What I will not do is talk or give airtime. And the best example of this is, although it sells, although people get views and people get followers and people, I'll get way more, interactions if I do that. I don't want to do it. I don't care as much about getting the interactions as I truly do interacting with smarter people. I want smarter people to get to bring on conversations that are challenging to make me a smarter person. And like The Necessary Conversation, there's a podcast out there called The Necessary Conversation where the dad is 100% cult. And I've stopped watching that show because I'm at a point now where it's like, this is for the views, and the conversation isn't going anywhere, and I can't support giving people airtime with these disinformation, misinformation, cultish points that can't back it up in any way, shape, or form. Because I feel that every time I put that information out there that is misinformation or disinformation, that is giving traction to somebody that might hear that will then basically run with it. And no matter what you say, they're going to run with it. No matter how many facts you show people, they're going to run with it. No matter how much you basically point out the truth, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. The individual in Minnesota was disarmed. They pulled it from his holster. The gun accidentally went off when the ICE agent was holding it. The other ICE agents opened fire. They unalived an unarmed individual. Now, why 7 of them could not restrain one individual is shocking to me, to be completely honest. Hello? But it is what it is. If that doesn't tell you they need more training, I don't know what does. But either way, I just can't. You can't watch that video. You can't see everything you've seen and basically say that law enforcement didn't make a mistake. They made a mistake. The cop, I don't think he went out there to purposely do it. I think they heard pew, 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 and then they heard a shot, which was the firearm that was being taken by the ICE officer that went off, which is a P320, which is known to accidentally fire with very light trigger and things like that. And once they heard that, the other officers fired. And it's a horrible mistake, but still not a good unaliving event. It's just not. It's just not. And if we can't all come to that agreement, or if you don't want to come to that at least acknowledgement of the situation, I'm not interested in having a conversation with you. But anything else, I am. All right. I wanted to put that out there. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. If you're here for that conversation, show up tomorrow. Show up tomorrow live at the same time, 8 o'clock. And I don't know, and I have videos I'm going to show tomorrow that it doesn't take much in regards to that. And that firearm is known for going off with very small pressure on the trigger. And sometimes going off just by dropping the gun. Okay? It's known for that. And that's now what's coming out that happened. Is that the weapon went off while it was pulled from his holster by another ICE agent, and as moving away from the area with the weapon, it went off, and the cops heard that, and then the ICE agents heard that, and then the ICE agents fired, and it was not a good shoot. First of all, there's a lot of things that need to happen before a police officer, he has to deem, he can't just open fire because he hears a pew-pew. He's got to determine where the pew-pew came from, who fired the pew-pew, like what's going on. He can't just open fire. You have to see the weapon in the hands, so things like that. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. Because I have other things I want to talk about today in regards to basically building your empire in the trucking company. All right, now that you heard the whole story, I moved on. And we're basically in the show. I'm going to move forward. So tomorrow we'll talk. I'll cover that type of stuff. Today I'm going to basically go into trucking. Okay. Let me pull this down here. Let me do this over here. All right. I'm also going to clip this type stuff too. This video. I'm going to clip this and put this out in regards to other days of the week, so you can kind of see what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in freight. Some of this might bore some of you, which is fine. Like I said, I'm building back towards my trucking logistical type crowd for Mondays and Fridays, and then Wednesdays you guys can show up and we can debate anything you want. We'll go other stories, not anything you want, but other things. So in regards to freight, one of the things that I'm going to be covering on this show is called Building Your Empire. I'm going to go basically step by step in regards to what you should be doing. Like, let's just say you got your CDL license, a Class A tractor trailer license with all your endorsements, and now you're going to get, what do you do with it now, right? Well, what do you do with it now? And I'm going to lay out one path, which I believe is, a decent path to be able to build your trucking empire, okay? Now, it doesn't have to be the only path. There's various ways to do other things, which I completely understand. But the path I'm going to basically go is say, okay, you've got your CDL, you've got your Class A license with your endorsements. My first recommendation would be get a company job someplace. That would be my first recommendation in regards to getting a company job. But first, let's go down. We're going to do a quick overall market information here. And then we'll jump into the rest. Okay. In regards to freight, we kind of, as you guys know, I have a CDL, been owner-operator, been a carrier, been a freight broker, and I'm a licensed insurance agent in regards to commercial trucking. So one of the things I'm going to be doing is, I got some stuff in the works, but we can't talk about that yet. But one of the things that we want to talk about is what's going on in the overall market. Now, the overall market is not so good in regards to freight volumes, meaning the amount of freight that is basically out there, not so good. Not so good in regards to freight volumes. Freight volumes is, are you guys spending a lot of money? Are you buying a lot of things? Are you, is your credit cards, are you using your credit cards to purchase a lot of items, new items, and stuff like that. Like, how much are you spending money? How much money are you spending? Because the more you spend, the more trucking companies move freight. The more volume that's out there. How's our manufacturing? Are we manufacturing a lot right now? Like, what's going on in the economy? Well, the economy's not in the best spot right now. Like it or not, I know there's going to be lots of arguments with this, but I'm being honest with you. It's not in the best spot. We've got pretty high cost of goods. Things are costing a lot of money. We've got energy costs, which are going to be going up. We have credit card debt. We have freight volumes in regards to, I'm sorry, not freight volumes. We have repos and foreclosures and stuff that are up all-time high, credit card debt all-time high. So we're not in the best shape right now. So that means that you're not spending a ton of money, which means retail stores and, good, she's over there sleeping. Retail stores and stuff like that are not moving a lot of freight. Not a lot of freight is traveling, right? It's not being out there and put on trucks, which means low freight volumes mean low freight. And that supply and demand would say, hey, there's this many trucks and this much freight, and this would tell you if you're getting a good rate, okay? So the volume of freight is down, but the money in which truck drivers are receiving is better than it was because we have a capacity crunch. So a lot of truck drivers, either with non-domiciled CDLs or just truck drivers in general getting out of trucking, we're starting to see that capacity, meaning the trucks that are out there, is dropping, but freight volume is not coming up. So we're okay. If freight volume were to skyrocket right now, we would be in trouble because we have low capacity of trucks right now. But we still have the freight volume. So in the overall market, when I look at the overall market, we are in just starting to enter into a neutral market. So what this basically means is easy to find a truck, hard to find a truck. Hard to find a truck is over here in a tight market, and that would be gold, red area. Easy to find a truck is green area. If it's easy to find a truck, I don't have to pay a lot of money for that truck to move, which means they're not making a lot of money, and that's the gist of that. So the overall market is still very loose right now. Same with van market. If you're just pulling a regular door swinger van, it's a loose market. Reefer market, reefer's starting to come up. Reefer would be, food, things like that, things that have to be refrigerated. Now, reefer also means freeze protection. Oh, hang on a second. Hang on. Oh, this might not work.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, Sage.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Hey, is it better to be an owner-operator or be a fleet driver?
It all depends on the situation, but I'm going to be getting into that. Why are you stealing my thunder?
I just want that.
Why are you stealing my thunder, you rat bastard?
Sorry. I'll give your thunder back.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it back. Good to know. Okay. I will get into that. But hang on a second. Phone number is on the screen, but it's not on yet. I forgot to turn the phone off from last night. Okay. Flatbed. So reefer is also higher right now because you also have freeze protection, plus keeping things cold. So things that can't freeze also use reefers to maintain that they don't freeze, right? So you have that going on also. So reefer is jumping up right now, but I also believe that that's from freeze protection because of the massively cold. Like, you don't want sodas and stuff freezing. So you have freeze protection for that with reefers also. So I have a feeling that's reefers up right now because of freeze protection also. Flatbed. So flatbed is also right now is popping up right now with flatbed. It's hard to find flatbed because a lot of flatbed in these months, usually those drivers switch to van, to be honest, because flatbed work, when you have snow on the ground and things like that, a lot of the flatbed and step deck and open deck equipment, it's hard to get cranes out there. It's hard to work when there's snow on the ground and things like that. So it normally slows up a little bit. But usually we lose a little bit of capacity with that because those guys will move over to the van. All right. And we're going to go into this. Then I'm going to go into that'll leave the last hour for that. Okay. So some of the other charts that I have basically going on is this one here. So this is the outbound tender volume index, which is a measure of the national freight demand. The takeaway from this is that early year, so the early volumes this year are below the same times in 24, 25. So right now, the amount of freight volume, which is the amount of freight that's moving, is actually, it's right here in this red. It's red right here. It's actually under what it was in 24 and 25. So we're moving less freight now, today, than we were in 24 and 25. Now, again, there's lots of reasons for that. Everything from weather to tariffs to the economy to stuff like that. But the actual freight volume is down. Okay. Now, this is where we kind of get into the story of supply and demand. So the actual tender rejections, a tender rejection is, I post a load, I normally have a contractor on it, but the problem is the truck breaks down or the contractor calls me and says, hey, I can't do that load this week, or they can't. I now have to post that to try to get a truck to cover that load. That becomes a tender rejection, meaning the original carrier fell off the load and I have to find a new truck. So there's a lot of carriers that are falling off loads, which means the capacity, capacity is tight. Now, this happens sometimes when you have bad weather, because like my trucks were supposed to load tomorrow, but they can't load tomorrow because they couldn't get down there tomorrow. Because of the bad weather, they got held up a day. So now they're going to load Thursday instead of loading Wednesday. So we've had to push that back. So that would be a tender rejection. So it's not always based on no capacity. It could also be based on small capacity, because trucks are just they can't get down there because of weather. But again, we're starting to have tightening capacity because in regards to vans and stuff like that, we're losing drivers, right? We're losing drivers that are just either going bankrupt, getting out of the industry, or non-domiciled, that we're, lots of those drivers, well, not huge amounts, but those drivers, English-speaking drivers and things like that, there's a lot more capacity. Freight brokers are now deciding, well, I'm not going to just, this load has to go on an English-speaking driver. You have to be sure of it, things like that. So this is going to tighten up capacity. So we're seeing capacity tightening up, but we're not seeing freight come up, just so you know. This one here is Morgan Stanley Reefer Truckload Freight Index. This right here for this year is obviously up, but again, I believe this is gonna start to go up now because you're gonna see freeze protection as much as you're gonna see refrigeration type systems, things like that. And then everything else is going to be freight fraud. All right, that's kind of that gist of things. All right, hang on. All right, the other thing, and this is like 5 minutes, and I'm going to speed it up a little bit. This is the other court case I'm watching. If you are in trucking, this is something you definitely want to watch.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So years after conflicting federal court rulings, the fight over freight broker liability is now in front of a new audience, the U.S. Supreme Court and its 9 justices. The case is Montgomery versus Caribbean, and it centers on whether freight brokers can be held liable under state negligence laws for crashes involving the motor carrier that they hired. Now the respondent is C.H. Robinson, and they're one of the largest 3PLs in North America. The appeal.
Okay. So basically the law that's out there is F4A, basically, was a law that had to do with the aviation type stuff, right? But because trucking goes across state lines, since the 1990s, what they basically said was, look, all of you states have different laws in regards to litigation, in regards to suing, in regards to things like this. But because we have 50 states, and truckers might cross 3 states on one trip, they decided to make it federal. So they basically said, look, we're going to go by federal guidelines when it comes to litigations and lawsuits and things like that, because to have 50 states with 50 different ideas and 50 different things in regards to something that crosses all these states could really put a damper on logistics, right? Because for you to be able to, so for me to be able to know as a freight broker, I take my freight and I put it on a carrier. Now that carrier gets into an accident and unalives somebody, right? Now, I never take possession of the freight. I am just hiring that carrier to haul the freight for the shipper. So my, liability was very limited in regards to that carrier. The carrier has the ultimate responsibility because they're the one that hires the driver. They know more about the driver than I know. Like, I might hire a carrier that has 200 trucks, but I don't know which truck and which driver they're going to put on it. My trust is that that carrier is hiring a responsible driver with a good safety record and, good procedures to maintain, safety on the road, right? I mean, that's kind of the responsibility that you hope that a business would have. Well, what they're basically saying is that now freight brokers, they want to hold freight brokers just as accountable for who they hire, which I am partially accountable for the carrier that I hire. But for me to know which driver is going to do it and which driver is going to haul it, that's kind of put down onto the trucking company that hires the driver, which that's where I believe it should be. Now, if I pick a carrier that has horrible safety ratings, well, that's kind of my fault because I need to be looking at those stats and things like that. But the problem is that now this two freight brokers, two cases have gone to the courts where they tried to sue the freight broker also, and the freight brokers won. Well, now these freight brokers have said, you know what, we've had enough of this. We want to take this to the Supreme Court so that there's a legal precedent at the Supreme Court level so that we don't keep trying to get sued every time this happens. Now, the White House has also jumped in on this, and they agree with the freight brokers. So, I'm going to show that the Trump administration White House has basically come in and said, no, we agree with the freight brokers that they shouldn't be able to be sued based on individual state guidelines.
Was brought by truck driver Sean Montgomery, who was struck and injured in December of 2017 by a truck operated by Caribbean Transportation. Now, according to FMCSA records, Caribbean was active at the time with just one power unit. C.H. Robinson hired Caribbean to move the load, and after the crash, both the carrier and the broker were sued by Montgomery. C.H. Robinson argued that it should not be held liable, and so far, the courts have agreed. Both the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Illinois and the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals have both ruled in favor of C.H. Robinson, holding that federal law preempts state negligence claims against brokers related to carrier selection.
Right, because it's federal law, so whatever the federal law is basically, kind of covering me because we cross state lines.
But other federal circuits have ruled differently in similar cases, allowing the claims against brokers to proceed. That split between circuits is what led the Supreme Court to take up the case. Last week, C.H. Robinson filed its response brief with the court, replying to arguments already submitted by Montgomery and his supporters. Now, the arguments themselves, they're not new, but they are being weighed at the highest level. At the center of the dispute is the Federal Aviation Administration Authorization Act, or F4A. The first part of F4A blocks states from regulating transportation prices, routes, or services. Now, the second part of the F4A is known what is called the safety exemption, which allows certain state actions if they involve safety and which are with respect to motor vehicles. Now, the entire case rests on what that phrase actually means and how the Supreme Court is going to interpret it. Courts that have allowed broker liability claims have concluded that with respect to motor vehicles includes brokers who hire those vehicles. Courts siding with brokers, including the Seventh Circuit in Montgomery, have concluded that the exemption is much narrower and applies to laws with a direct connection to motor vehicles themselves, not commercial decisions like selecting a carrier. C.H. Robinson's brief leans heavily into that interpretation. The brief also points to how Congress structured liability and insurance requirements across the entire transportation industry. Motor carriers are required by federal law to carry liability insurance to cover personal injury claims. Airlines face similar requirements. Brokers, however, do not. According to C.H. Robinson, that omission matters. The argument is straightforward. If Congress intended for brokers to face personal injury liability, it would have required them to carry insurance capable of covering those judgments.
True. So I can't get insurance the same as a carrier can. I can get what's called contingent insurance, which is based on the fact that if the carrier doesn't have the proper insurance, my insurance would cover it. But it's not the exact same. Does it cost me the same? Yes, just about. But it's not the exact same.
The company also highlights that brokers are explicitly mentioned elsewhere in the F4A, including provisions governing intrastate rates and services, but are notably absent from the safety exemption itself. Throughout federal transportation law, Robinson argues Congress regulates motor carriers with respect to safety without mentioning brokers at all. And if Congress wants to change that, Robinson says, it can do so directly. Now, the brief argues stakeholders are free to push Congress to revisit the balance struck between safety and economic efficiency, or to urge states to raise the minimum carrier insurance levels, something that hasn't changed at the federal level since the Motor Carrier Act of 1980. Though
I'm actually going to have, I'll do it later. If anybody's on TikTok, let me know, because I'm going to have somebody jump in my TikTok, and I want to see how I can bring somebody up.
Some states like New Jersey have increased it on their own. What Robinson strongly opposes is what it calls a 50-state patchwork of regulation by jury verdict. If negligence claims like Montgomery's are allowed to proceed, the company warns, brokers and shippers would be forced to select carriers based on differing state standards, increasing compliance costs, limiting carrier access to freight, and creating new barriers to entry to the market, especially for smaller carriers and owner-operators. The legal teams involved heavily underscore how high the stakes are here. C.H. Robinson's Supreme Court brief includes Theodore J. Botris of Gibson, Dunn, and Crozier, a veteran Supreme Court litigator, alongside longtime counsel and attorneys from Thompson Coburn.
Now, if you're not tracking this might be a little important to you. But just kind of understand that the fact that basically what you're looking at is if freight brokers can now be held liable. If I am now held liable, just as much as the carrier that hauls the freight, the knee-jerk reaction in regards to trucking, if you're in trucking, is going to be bad, right? Because if that's the case, I'm now going to start to say, well, before that driver can haul my freight, I want to see their MVR. I want to see their motor vehicle record. I want to see how many accidents they've had, how many tickets they've had. I want to actually see all of that. Because if I'm going to now be held liable, I'm going to, a couple things are going to have to change. My costs are going to go up, which means, it's going to cost more for freight to be moved. Because now I might have to get additional insurance. I might have to get, depending on, what that is, those costs go up. As costs go up, the cost of goods go up because those costs are all eventually passed down to you and me, right? To not you and me, the freight broker, but to you and me, the person. Also, it's going to put more pressure on the carriers and the truck drivers to keep better records and compliance and stuff like that. Because if I see that you're getting a bunch of compliance, then that the littlest things freight brokers might now say, sorry, you're out of luck. So as trucking companies, you should be very into your compliance and stuff like that, 100%, which is something I'm going to be, we'll talk about that later. But it's going to make it where if you're an individual solo driver trying to haul freight and you get one ticket, that might put you out. Now you're out, depending on the ticket. You're done. Freight brokers aren't going to use you because of that. And now that's a question we need to ask.
And Montgomery's team added former U.S. Solicitor General Paul Clement, who served under President George W. Bush. Circle your calendar for March 4th. That's when the Supreme Court will hear arguments that could redefine broker liability across the entire freight market. At its core, this case raises a fundamental question the industry has been asking and wrestling with for years. Where does broker responsibility end? And who bears the risk when something goes wrong on the road? Is it the broker? Is it the carrier? Who is at fault and who bears that responsibility? So make sure you guys subscribe.
So that's something to think about. That's something to watch. All right, let me do this. We're going to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of this because of my story. I'm a little short of time. We'll get rid of this, and we're going to go here. We're going to go here and here. Okay, so let me kind of go into building your empire. So I'm going to start basically a step process. Step one would be you just got your license, and you are going to make a decision on how you want to go. So after getting your CDL license, that is something that you now have technically, probably, possibly forever. I still have mine. I haven't driven a tractor trailer in years, but I still have mine. I'm never going to get rid of it. But you have to understand that when you drive, even if you're driving a motorcycle, even if you're driving a car, no matter what you're doing, you are not driving a separate vehicle. Your motor vehicle report is not different based on the vehicle that you are driving. It is based on the license in which you hold, okay? So once you get your CDL license, you could be in your car. If you get a speeding ticket, that's going to affect your truck driving license because you don't have two separate licenses. You don't have a separate license for driving a car and a separate license for driving a motorcycle. You just have a commercial motor vehicles license. That's it. So everything that goes on there affects you. For about 5 years, to be completely honest. It's going to affect you for about 5 years. So realize now that you have this license, the world of driving changes. Okay? This is how you're going to make your livelihood. This is, and making your money. And could be a career, that you're going to be in for many, many, many years. It's like the mafia, technically. Once you get in, you can't get out. So, step one, once you have your license, is which way do you go down the road? My opinion, to be completely honest, is because most people that get their license, the younger generation that was getting their license at 21, 22, 23 years old, probably never ran a business. Probably didn't own a business. And I'm not talking a lemonade stand or a landscape. I'm talking like a business, like an LLC where you had to do payroll and things like that. Now, some of you might have, but you probably never did. So you're stepping into a new industry that you don't know a lot about, and you're doing it from a perspective of just getting your license. My opinion would be become a company driver. That's what I did. And the reason you become a company driver is you can end up being an owner-operator and stepping into a lease. But the problem is now you have to figure out business and truck driving. You haven't mastered either of them, right? You haven't even learned either of them. And you want to step into that world and now and handle both. And both are hard. When you're just learning it, running a business is hard. Running a business is always hard, just so you know. And getting a driving truck and learning trucking is also hard. So the road I'm going to basically do for building a trucking empire would be becoming a company driver after getting your CDL and starting there. And some of the things that you should be doing, in my opinion, again, to basically decide if you want to move to the next step. Okay. So when you're a company driver, you're obviously going to learn the policies and procedures of the company that you're going to work with. That's kind of standard. It doesn't matter if you're going to be driving a flatbed or a van. They're going to teach you how they want things done according to their company, right? That's some of the stuff that you're going to have. We're going to push that out because that could be different depending on the company. What's not different are the rules of the road and the rules in regards to trucking, the rules in regards to hours of service, drive time, off-duty time, on-duty time, and things like that. So some of the stuff that you should be doing if you're going to want to build a trucking empire, like I said, I'm going to go down the road that this is based on you wanting to eventually own your own trucking company and build a logistical trucking empire. As a company driver, some of the first thing that you should be learning is how, like it or not, what it's like to be away from home by yourself for possibly months at a time. That factor of what you're going to do, because most of your time is going to be away from home or away from, that, unless you jump right into a local job, but I'm pretty much talking over the road. You're going to be away probably for 3 weeks and home 3 days, maybe 4. Most of the time, maybe longer. You could be out 2 months and be home 5 days, things like that. So really understanding that, what it's like to be away from home. And the reason you're kind of learning all this is so that you know what your drivers are going to be going through also. But basically understanding how to do that. That's not as easy as you think sometimes. This is, going down the road over the road driver. It is very isolation. There's a lot of isolation. It's easier now with social media and things like that than it was, earlier on. But still realizing that you're going to be going to places that you've never been before, and you're going to have to be driving a tractor trailer, 53-foot trailer, usually 20-foot, somewhere around 75 feet of truck. And you're going to have to be pulling into locations you've never been to before, and figuring that type of stuff out. So first rule you're going to basically look to do is understand what it's like to be away from home, everything you have to do from clothes to shopping to whatever it is, filling your truck up, how are you going to eat, things like that. You got to win that battle first. Then you're also going to have to figure out time management, which is immensely important because down the road you're going to have to figure out time management when you run a business. Time management in regards to trucking is difficult because you are put on a clock in regards to hours of service that you have to now determine. One, you still have to be not tired to drive because you can't drive when you're tired because that's not safe. But you might be up all day and then have to drive all night. And these are things you're going to have to figure out, sleeping possibly during the day when you're not used to that, driving at night when you're not used to that, because your hours of service start at a specific time and you can't stop them until you put yourself back into sleeper berth, right? So time management is going to be something you're going to have to learn in regards to the hours of service, driving on the road, plus time management in regards to 34-hour restarts, and things like that. That is the first step that you're going to have to learn. Sounds easy, but it's harder than you think. The next thing you're going to want to have to start to make sure you understand is routing, which, reading a map. I know we don't do that anymore, to be completely honest, because a lot of you have GPSs and stuff like that, but you're going to want to understand how to read a map. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but having a map in there, because sometimes GPSs are stupid, and guide you in directions that you just probably shouldn't have been there. So understanding, because you've already tried to have to figure out how to shift gears and all this other stuff. You should already be learning that, unless you're in an automatic. But reading a map and understand trip planning, like where am I going to stop for the night? How far can I make it in a day? Which roads am I going to be on? Because you're going to want to make sure that you know where you're going. You're not just being led down the road by a GPS, right? And the GPS just telling you. You're going to want to know, okay, I'm supposed to be getting on, US 15 here someplace. It should be a couple miles up. And then the GPS will say, should be saying US 15. So you should be knowing this type of stuff as a truck driver. And I know it sounds weird that, this doesn't have to do with my building my truck empire. Yes, it does. Because you have to understand how everything is working if you want to be better at the company that you're going to run. One of the reasons that I was successful in my company is I started as a truck driver. I got my CDLB, I got my CDLA, I did all this, and then I went the Coast Guard, came out. But I then also bought my own truck, became a carrier, became a freight broker, and I learned all of these steps as I went. So once you can kind of basically get the time management down and pre-trip and figure out where you're going to stop for the night, where the goal is, where the rest areas are, if you have to, you're going to be able to know that. Where am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? When am I going to pull over to eat? Things like that. So that you can be most profitable while driving down the road. Because most truck drivers are paid, by the mile. So you want to stop when you need to stop and then keep moving when you can keep moving so you can be most profitable so that you can bring the biggest paycheck home every week. Because that you're now teaching yourself how to bring money into the business. You're teaching yourself how to bring money because your bank account's eventually going to become a business bank account, but you're basically making that where you're training yourself to do that. The other thing you're going to want to start to do is learn how to budget money. Like I said, you might be younger, 21, 22, 23 years old, where basically you might start making more money than you've ever seen before, even though it might not be a lot early on. It's still more than you've seen before. And you're going to want to understand budgeting money, how to pay your bills, how to pay them on time. And this is all eventually so that you can run a business down the road. Knowing how much you should be paying yourself on top of how much you're paying towards your bills and things like that. Saving money, and establishing that. And you're also going to want to have start having some type of software. This is as a company driver. You're going to want to start to have some type of software that you can keep track of your bills, keep track of how much money is in your bank account, keep track of, what you made this week, what you made that week. Like, even as a company driver, your paycheck's going to vary. I should be able to come to you and say, hey, how much did you make 12 weeks ago? How much did you make January 1st of last year, if you've been driving that long? Like, I should be able to come to you, and you should be able to pull that up. You should be able to pull that up. Because this is important, because running a business is a lot of data collection, a lot of knowing your numbers and keeping track of all this. So learning this as a company driver, while other people are paying your bills, how to keep track of this, how to keep a budget, how to keep all this, is your first steps on basically creating important habits to allow you to be more successful as you continue on with your trucking company. Those are mostly some. I mean, there's obviously other things, like if you're a door swinger, backing up and all these other things, getting better at driving the truck. That's all normal. If you're going to be an open deck, securement, making sure you completely learn how to do securement properly, what guidelines are, FMCSA guidelines, the different things, straps, chains, making sure, also making sure that you are, even though you're a company driver, making sure you are doing good checks on your equipment, and that your equipment is kept to the best of it possibly could be, especially when you're a company driver and you have a company that's going to pay for maintenance, okay? You're going to want to be very good at doing your pre-trip or your post-trip, either way, and learning how to properly get into a good routine where you are checking your equipment and not becoming complacent in regards to checking that equipment. That's something that you might look and be like, well, you don't check as much because the company pays for that, but you really should be doing that and making sure that that's something you do a lot. That is a lot of the stuff that you should be learning to do as a company driver, and deciding, do I want to, because at this point you have to decide, do I want to move to the next step of either leasing a truck or buying a truck? Like, do I even want to do the next step? Like, at this point you have to decide what's the trade-off? And that's why I'm doing this series. I'm basically going to make it that what your trade-off is. Like, as a company driver, you don't have maintenance costs. You have pretty much somebody else telling you where to go. They're finding the freight for you. They're telling you where to go. There's somebody there when you have issues. When you have a problem, you can call into dispatch and get somebody else's opinion, somebody else's help in regards to something, a breakdown. You're just going to basically call dispatch and say, hey, I'm broke down, help me. These are problems you don't have to worry about. You don't have to worry about that the tow truck's going to show up and not rip you off. You're just going to, they're going to tow you. So the things that you should be doing to improve yourself, if you decide to make that next step, are a lot of these simple things, to be completely honest, as a truck driver. And it's a lot more learning how things work financially, money, and how trucking works. Like, how does it work with trucking? Like, how does my hours of work? How does my clock work? The roads, the weather conditions. When does weather start to get bad? When should I, and then, when should I probably be on the southern route rather than in the mountains? Things like that. The other things you should be doing that is not trucking related is you should be taking this time, because you're going to have a lot of time sitting behind the wheel just driving down the road. And I know a lot of people they want to either talk to people on the phone or they want to listen to YouTube channel stuff and things like that. But some of the stuff that you should be doing is taking some type of business classes. You should be understanding business. If your goal is to get out of the company driver and open up a business and enter into the world of trucking to build your trucking empire, you should be taking this time as a company driver, not being able to do this much, to take the time to learn business. And the key aspects of business would be economics, would be huge. Understanding supply and demand, and things like that would be a definite, and I know it's boring, so I probably wouldn't do it while driving down the road, but you should be learning this and understanding business structure, business models, building a business plan, understanding, not piercing the corporate veil, understanding the difference between an LLC and a sole proprietor. All of these things should be something that you should be learning even at a 101, business 101 level. Because if your goal is to open a business, you now have the opportunity, while other people are handling a majority of the problems and you're kind of just the truck driver, you now have an opportunity to take that while making good money, while in the business that you would like to succeed at, to learn about business. And I think that's something that is not done enough. Like, people watch YouTube videos and they're like, yep, I can do it. Let's go. And they find out, oh, crap, I don't know much about this. I don't know much about that. Now, you can watch YouTube videos and learn a lot, but you should try to get some type of certification. Now, Small Business Administration, they'll guide you in directions. They might even have courses. There's definitely courses you can take online that are going to be free. Some are going to cost money. You can take from online classes. Like I said, you're going to have some downtime in that truck. You're going to have 34-hour restarts in that truck. You're going to have times that you can do this, that it doesn't have to be on your home time, right? So your home time's doing for stuff yet. But you need to be looking to improve yourself, to push forward to if you want to go to the next level. Now, if you don't want to move to the next level, if you just want to be a company driver forever because you don't want the responsibility of the business, You like the fact that other people dispatch you. You make great money. You'd rather just, move up at the position that you're in. Maybe now you're driving a van. You can do that and still make great money in trucking. So you might come in as a door swinger pulling a 53-foot van, but down the road, you might step into pulling a tanker, where now there's more responsibility. You have to have a hazmat, and you make more money. You might step into being a open deck driver, flatbed or step deck driver, where instead of just, swinging a door, you're making more money because you're tarping a load. You might want to enter into refrigerated, where now you're just not backing into a door. You might be getting paid downtime for sitting, waiting for the load to be unloaded. You might want to get into an open deck as a company driver and start doing over-dimensional freight, where you start to make more money because there's more responsibility, even as a company driver, that you can make more money. So if you want, and this is a big thing I see with truck drivers, is they come into the lowest level of trucking. They come into the van aspect, just a 53-foot van, door swinging, 53-foot. That's the easiest one to get into, that has the most opportunities. And supply and demand will dictate that that's going to pay the least amount of money, right? Because there are more people coming into that, right? When you have to compare to oversize or compared to tankers. So you come in to pull a van and you enter into trucking and you say, well, trucking's not paying enough money. But you're still at the lowest level of trucking. Well, right? You're still at the lowest level of trucking. You're still pulling a van. Now, you can take the opportunity to up the stakes and basically go get your hazmat or go get your tanker endorsement. And then you can go from van to pulling a tanker. Now that's going to pay more money than a van. So you don't have to make the changes and to go into just saying, well, I want to own my own company. I want to be my own boss. I want to make more money. You can make the changes to say, well, I'm not interested in being an owner. I'm not interested in doing anything else. But I am looking and making more money. So the aspect that I'm going to do is I'm going to basically become a tanker driver or an open deck driver. And I'm going to see if I can get on a step deck company or oversized freight. Or instead of pulling a van where I'm just pulling bottled water, I'd rather do what we call white gloves. White gloves would be a FedEx Custom Critical type situation. I mean, they're an owner-operator company, but where you might have a company where you have a lift gate. And you might have to put blankets over the product, and you might have to, secure the product to the trailer inside the trailer. So you're hauling robotics where it has to be all secured in there because nothing can tip over or break. So now you're a white glove situation. Or you might say, you know what, I'm not looking to drive over the road. I'm looking to make an hourly wage. I want to be a local driver. I want to work for a U.S. food service where I'm paid by the hour and I'm union. So there are aspects of just being a truck driver where you can make great money, but the issue is that do you want to do these things? Are you looking to step into these other fields and do these other positions and these other jobs? And that's a decision you're going to want to make while you're a company driver. Because there's a lot of people that get into truck driving. They get their CDL. They find out they can't be away from home for a month. They don't like having 3 days off. They don't like being by themselves. They don't like truck stops. They don't like truck stops food. And next thing you know, they leave trucking because it just wasn't for them. They were sold a different bill of sale, or they thought they could, and they didn't know that they couldn't do it until they got their license, and they were out there for 2 months, and they didn't come home. And when they were home, they were only home 2 or 3 days. So I see this a lot because people will get their license or not get their license and buy a box truck, and then they spend $30,000-$40,000 buying a box truck, and then they spend $5,000 on insurance or $3,000 on insurance, and they find out that they don't even like this. It's harder than they thought. They don't like driving the truck. I mean, when I worked for U.S. Food Service, I used to say this all the time. I would leave when it was dark out, and I'd come home when it was dark out. And it didn't matter if it was summer or winter. I mean, there were times, like I said, I'd leave with 2 pairs of boots and a couple pairs of socks, because by the time I was done with U.S. Food Service, I'm walking through snow, I'm delivering 100-pound bags of flour, and up and down stairs, and I'm walking, my boots are soaking wet. I had to put them out on the dashboard, things like that. But that was a local job, but I was home every night. Now, I might not be home early. I was definitely home late, but it was still home every night. So there are aspects of this job that you want to kind of look into as a company driver. I know this might be boring to some, but I'm trying to do more trucking content and logistical content because that's my forte. Plus, I'm going to be moving in a direction that there needs to be some conversations. There needs to be some conversations because this can be a fantastic career. This can be a fantastic empire to build. But if you build it wrong, it can go wrong very quickly, and you can go broke very quickly. All right. Now that I've got that, let me. I'm gonna turn the phones on. I don't expect many phone calls, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm building this one, and I gotta work on my TikTok. All right. I'm gonna play this video here real quick.
And I thought I would go over last year's numbers, how much I made cents per mile, how much I grossed net, and how much it cost me to operate. The biggest thing is how much it cost me to operate. So without blabbing too.
Okay, this is HIGB on YouTube. He's going to go over his expenses. He's going to go over his costs and things like that. And this is what I was talking about. As a company driver, you might not have these expenses, but you are going to have bills that you're going to want to keep track of. You're going to want to be stockpiling money. You're going to want to know how much money went in every week, what you made. You're going to want to learn how to keep track of your money. I don't care if you're doing it. You probably should have some software that you're keeping track of how much is going in the bank, what you're paying for car insurance, what you're paying for your car loan, what you're paying for rent, what you're paying for all of your bills. And you need to start learning because this right here is where learning those skills and learning how to manage that software will eventually allow you to make the next step in regards to buying your own truck.
Too much, let's get right into it. This little top box right here is my yearly earnings. I did $502,000. I netted to myself.
Okay, so his gross earnings. His gross earnings were $203,502. That's everything that came into the truck. Gross means all of it. That's all of it. How much came into the truck?
Bring home $61,540.
Now he made $61,540, but it says $450, but that's okay. He made $61,000 net. Now, understand that net could be after expenses, after fuel, after everything, and after his, hopefully he breaks it down, paycheck, right? Because he's probably paying himself.
Total miles, I did 85,681. My truck earned every mile $2.38. And that's calculated by taking the last odometer from the finish of the last load I did in 2025 and subtracting it all the way back from the ending odometer of 2024. The 72 cents per mile is how much I netted.
Okay, so basically did was at the beginning of the year, January 1st, he wrote down his mileage. December 31st, he wrote down his mileage. He calculated how many miles he did over the year. So he did 85,000 miles in a year. Let's just say 86,000. He did 86,000 miles in a year. He then took that and divided that into how much money he made, and that's what he came up with, how many miles every minute that truck was driving down the road, every mile that went on it, divided by how much money he made, is basically paid him $2.38 a mile.
And then my cost of operation was $1.66.
Okay, and then 72 cents was his net. Now, it costs him to operate his truck. This is very important. This is very important. This is where truck drivers eventually lose complete control of their business. You have to know, obviously it's approximately because fuel can be adjusted. You have to know how much it costs to run your truck. By the mile, by the day, by the week, by the month. By the mile, by the week, by the mile, by the day, by the week, by the month. You have to know that. This is business, and businesses know numbers. They have number crunchers.
This number right here, that 61,540, that comes from my accounting program. Let me jump over here to that. So my fuel at the top was 48,000, then my truck payment, then my insurance, then my maintenance on the trailer was 7,500. Then I had maintenance on my big truck, was right at $7,000 for the month. Then tires for the tractor was 5,900, and that's really the first bed of tires. Each year, I've gone through a few sets of steers, but I haven't gone through that many drives. At 350,000 miles, I changed my drives from when I bought the truck brand new. And those came due this year. And then after that, it was DEF, phone and internet, DEF, then meals, then just miscellaneous expenses. And from there on down, it was like tags, $2,000 for tags, and then dues and subscriptions. And everything else on past that was just pretty much minuscule stuff, truck washes. You can see on there on truck washes and office supplies. I probably bought some ink for the printer over here, or the ink for the printer in the truck. But most of that stuff is pretty minuscule, like scales. I only had $57 in scales. I don't never scale my truck. But yeah, so at the very bottom, I take that $61,540, and then I transpose that over to here.
So he's going through all of his expenses, everything that costs him money, maintenance, everything that's going to cost him money.
Under the spreadsheet, $61,540. You subtract that from that. You know, basically you're taking the cents per mile, and you're taking the gross divided by the miles, and it gives you the cents per mile.
Now he's using a spreadsheet to do this. There's software that'll do this.
The net is taking how much I earned divided by how many miles I made, and it's coming out to 72 cents a mile. And my cost of operation was at $1.66. So other than that, I mean, really, that's about all there is to this video. If you come up here in the spreadsheet, what I did last month, there's the last Amazon load that I did at $8,137. Then after that, last month, I went from Columbia to Jacksonville, got 1,100. Went from Greenwood, then I deadheaded from Jacksonville back to the house.
See, this is a perfect example I'm talking about. I can literally ask him, and you should be able to do this at every level. Even if you're a company driver, you should start keeping track of where you went, how much you made, and everything. You should start keeping track of this. You should practice this. You should know, because you'll know that, well, I went from here to here, and I was paid this much a mile. It was this many miles, and you should keep track of that, right? You should 100% be doing the same thing as a company driver. It's not needed, but it puts you in a good habit and basically in a good place to understand, because it will matter when you run a business. I can guarantee I can go to him and say, hey, 2 years ago, January 1st, 2 years ago, where were you? What were you hauling? What were you making? And he'd be able to tell me.
And it went from Greenwood to Ohio. They picked the load up about not too far from there, went from Delaware, Ohio, back to Jefferson, Georgia. And then I ended up with some more, 315 miles deadhead, because I deadheaded from Jefferson to the house, from the house to Greenwood. Then they told me the load wasn't ready to the next day, so I deadheaded back home another 70 miles, then went back to Greenwood, so 70, 70. And
would you realize that a person working McDonald's is making more money getting time and a half overtime? No. I don't understand.
70, so it would have been only 170 miles after the deadhead home. But that's the thing. When I'm saying I made 72 cents a mile average, that's counting every bit of that deadhead. That's counting trips to the tire store to get tires changed when I go home. That's counting out of route.
Three accidents, depending on the accident, yeah, 100%. 3 accidents, your fault. 1 accident, your fault, could be put you out of the game nowadays for insurance purposes.
Turns, anything that was included. That's not, because let's look at one more thing. I just want to do.
Oh, the phones are on.
His number, 856-600-4654, Sage Outcast?
Yeah, phones are on.
Just curious, what I made per paid mile. So if I just look at the loads that I booked, so you come up here to the top, and I'm going to hit equal, well, I already know what I made at 203. So I just want to, I want to find out what I've netted. So we're going to take AutoSum, and we're going to take all the money, or all the, well, this column right here is what Google says it is. So I'm going to come down here and take that column right there, we're going to scroll it all the way to the top. Those are all those Amazon loads, and then these single loads right here is before. So now I'm going to go right to there and hit enter. So I did 67,900. So might as well just round it up to 68,000 miles. And then you'll hit equals that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No one gets overtime at McDonald's. I mean, before they pay overtime, they make you management. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what you mean by overtime at McDonald's.
Divide that by that. Hit enter. So you see, I averaged $3 a mile.
Thank you. Finally not giving your bias opinion on politics. Good content. Well, I do that on Wednesdays.
On all miles that I've done. And so I lost roughly, let's see, equals that.
So he's going to punch in a bunch of numbers. And the reason I wanted to kind of show this, because I'm going to talk about another video real quick. Well, the reason I wanted to show this was, this right here is what you should be doing even if you're a company driver. Even if you're a company driver, I know it sounds stupid. You should get yourself into the habit of learning how to do this and keeping track of this and understanding how you come up with these numbers, and that way you can learn to maximize it to what works for you. Even if it's buying software, because when you buy a truck, you have to do this. It's not required by law, but for you to be successful, you're going to have to keep track of this. You have to. All right. Next video. I thought this one was interesting. We're doing a reaction video here. I'm going to slow it down because I think I've set it at 2 speed. I do. Let's see how fast this is. Hang on.
Before we start, I want to be brutally honest about this. I have left the door open to Hurricane Express plenty of times. I've asked Caden to come on here. Let's talk this thing out face to face. He said that he doesn't want to do.
Okay. This is Big Rig Nation. I haven't really been following him, but this hurricane thing has been going back and forth, and I'm probably going to find the actual podcast at the hurricane. So hurricane truck. Well, let's just
that we're going to push our narrative, and you know what?
The driver worked 14 hours, 6 days a week. That's 84 hours a week. So McDonald's would get 44 hours of overtime, 44 hours on overtime on behalf. Yeah, I guess if they were doing that, but they don't do that at McDonald's.
I kind of understand how he feels because over here at Big Rig Nation, I like to push the truth. So since everybody keeps asking about this, I think this is one of the best ways to handle it. And I don't know, maybe if you don't think it is, tell me at the end. But I want you to watch this podcast he's on. I want you to listen to what he says and the language that comes out of his mouth. And then I'm going to come back and explain to you what's really happening here or what's going on. I'm not asking you to believe me. You know, I want you to think for yourselves because here at Big Rig Nation, we want to educate you and then let you do the deciding. Listen to him first, then listen to the breakdown that I do, and then you make your decision. If he thinks that I'm wrong about any of this, he's more than welcome to put it out there and explain why he feels like this. Okay, but let's get to work, all right, and let's play this clip and get to going.
Get to going.
People are posting that are driving 70 to 80 miles an hour. They're burning $3,000 a week in fuel easily. Okay, so even though they're bragging to everybody that they're making $7,000 a week, they've only got $4,000 a week to cover any expense other than fuel.
Let's stop right here. What he's saying is this: if you're posting a $7,000 a week, you must be running 70 or 80 miles an hour, burning $3,000 a week in fuel, which will only leave you with around $4,000. That's the claim. First problem, most of these trucks that he runs are governed. They physically cannot run those types of speeds. Second problem, heavy haul drivers are probably laughing their tail off when they hear this because
True. So
heavy haul guys make way more than $7,000 a week, pulling 150,000 pounds more, and they're not running 70 and 80 miles an hour out in maybe in the open areas they can, but in most parts of the United States, they're not running that hard.
True. This is actually, that's actually a great point. So when somebody says that, hey, if you're making that much money, you're making a lot of money here, you must be running 70, 80 miles an hour for you to be able to make that money. These are blanket statements. And I do agree with Big Rig Nation here. That's a blanket statement because, again, what we just talked about, what are you pulling? Are you pulling a van? Are you pulling a tanker? Are you pulling a reefer? Are you pulling an oversized truck? What are you pulling? Now, first of all, my oversized guys, they're not pulling 150,000 pounds, and they're still not doing 70, 80 miles an hour because my freight is tall and wide, and it becomes a big sail. And they're also not making $7,000 a week, to be honest. I have a load that's moving this week that's making $7,000 in 2 days. So that's just, I don't know what to tell you. Like I said, in the aspect of overdimensional freight, it's a whole nother world. It's a whole nother world. Now, does it take a better driver to do that? Yes. Does it take somebody who can actually read permits? Yes. Would I recommend you coming in and moving overdimensional freight, never driving a truck? No. Matter of fact, you ain't pulling my freight. But there are aspects of trucking where you can make that money without doing 80 miles an hour.
And they're permitted and they're even planned. Speed isn't what makes
yes, UPS pulling doubles
your money. The load does, the rate does, the structure does. But then he stacks another assumption right on top of it. He says that if they're running a $7,000 a week, they're at least running 3,000 miles. That's simply just not true. Plenty of drivers make $7,000 a week without running coast to coast.
True. Very true. Tanker drivers can do that. And van drivers could technically, maybe not, it's not as easy, but if you're a logistical van driver where you have a white glove situation, you could make that much money, depending on what you're moving, when you're moving it, and how it has to be moving, right? Lift gates, a bunch of stuff like that.
Doing regional work, dedicated lanes, short freight that pays with extra pay. Sure. Reefer sitting at docks all week can make that kind of money. There's companies that actually do this. And then my favorite part is at the end where he's like, it leaves you with $4,000. Yeah, in your structure, the way that you run it does. That's for sure. Miles don't equal money. Rates do.
Well,
true. Very true.
Truck and trailer, whether you have a payment or not, a truck and trailer together are going to cost you a minimum of $1,000 a week. There's no way it can cost you less than that. It's actually more if you have new equipment and payments on everything. But so you're $1,000 a week. So now you're $7,000, which after fuel is $4,000. Well, now it's $3,000.
Now I don't understand this. and he's going to talk about a little bit this, but Big Rig Nation doesn't bring this point up. What do you mean by it's going to cost you $1,000 a week? Like, what do you mean by that? Now, what most of us would assume would be maintenance, but...
Let's stop right here again. Listen to what he just said.
Okay.
He's saying whether you have a payment or not, a truck and trailer together costs you a minimum of $1,000 a week. No way it can be less than that. And then he does this. $7,000 gross minus fuel leaves $4,000 minus this automatic $1,000 truck and trailer charge. Now you're at $3,000. That's the move. Here's the problem with this. He's treating every truck like it has the same cost every single week.
Right. Like, I don't know, like, let's go with $1,000 a week. That'd be $52,000. So what is costing you $52,000? Is that maintenance? Like, because he said it costs you. It costs you. Now, understand, we're going to talk down the road in regards to building your trucking empire. We are going to talk about maintenance and putting money into the business and stuff like that. But he's saying it's a cost, not a savings, but a cost. Okay? So what is the cost that he's coming up with for $1,000 a week? And I don't know. I don't know.
That's not how trucking works, okay? A paid-off truck does not cost the same as a brand-new truck. A leased trailer does not cost the same as an owned trailer.
True.
Some drivers own their equipment, lease only the trailer, have lower insurance tiers, have weeks with no equipment expenses at all, but he flattens all of that out into one number and applies it every week. No exceptions. That's not math. That is what we call worst-case stacking. And notice something else that he says. It's actually more if you have new equipment. So what he's really doing is building his entire argument around new equipment with maximum payments. Then he turns around and uses that number to tell everyone what trucking really pays. That's not...
Problem is, I don't even think he's doing that. I think he just came up with a number and he's saying that it's going to cost $1,000 a week. You can't go any lower than that. Well, what he doesn't do is tell me what those costs are. You should be able to then say, well, what are the costs for the $1,000 a week for that used piece of equipment? He doesn't say.
Not reality. That's using the most expensive setup possible to make the outcome look like the worst case than it actually is. Some weeks cost more, some weeks cost less. But pretending there's a hard $1,000 floor for every driver every single week, and no matter what, look, that's not education. That's framing. And it's done so the math keeps shrinking no matter how well the driver runs. And once again, this might be the case in his structure.
Then you got insurance.
Okay, so it's not insurance.
And the least that a one truck operation is going to pay for cargo, liability, physical damage on both units is $2,000 a month. Okay?
No, that is not true. That is not true. How do I know this? I sell insurance. I'm a licensed insurance agent for commercial trucking. Now, it could be as much as $4,000, or I have seen authorities, not non-trucking liability, but authorities, meaning you have your own numbers. I have literally seen people at $700, $800. It depends on the area. It depends on your motor vehicle record, your credit score, your garaging address, a lot of factors that I have seen. I think I ran one in Indiana yesterday that did 200, no. He did a 500-mile radius, and his price was $800 a month. I'm sorry, $800 a month, and his carrier and the insurance company he was with now was $1,000 a month. So I beat it by $200, and that was for full coverage. That was for auto liability. That was for physical damage on the truck and the trailer. That was for cargo insurance, and that was for general liability. That was for everything he needed for a trucking company, basically, or at least for what he did. And that was full trucking coverage insurance, and he was currently paying $1,000. And I think I was $850. I think I got it down to $850. And there were some discounts there for like motive, different ELDs and having previous insurance and stuff like that. But you can't come out and say the minimum is $2,000. Can't say that insurance.
Okay, so now we have to take another $500 out, and we're down to $2,500. Okay.
Okay, so let's stop right here again. Now he brings in the insurance. He says the least a one truck operation is going to pay for cargo, liability, physical damage on both units is going to be $2,000 a month. So now he takes another $500 a week out and says you're down to $2,500. That's the move. You see, here's the problem with this. Insurance is not a flat number. It depends on your driving record, what you are hauling, how old your truck is, how long you've been running, whether you're leased on or you're running under your own authority, running a brand new authority with no history. And it does not pay the same as a driver with years of clean records. And he's working with insurance. He's probably in a pool for an insurance company getting great rates. A paid off truck does not insure the same as brand new equipment.
It's true. That's what I'm saying. So I don't know where he's coming up with that number.
Some drivers pay more. Some drivers pay a lot less. But what he is doing is using the highest common number. He calls it the minimum, and he applies it to everyone. This is just not the reality. This is what we call worst case framing again.
And that's not even worst case framing, to be honest. It can be much higher.
And notice this pattern, all right? Every step, fuel is high. Truck costs are maxed. Insurance is maxed. There's no room in his math for a driver who runs smart, controls his costs, or isn't in the most expensive setup possible. Those numbers are built to keep shrinking the outcome, no matter what, in their structure. That's not an accident. That's how you make every path end in the same low result.
Haven't touched maintenance. Not one.
Okay, so this is where my confusion lies. He said that a truck would cost $1,000 a week. $1,000 a week. $52,000 a year. And he hasn't talked about maintenance. Like, what was that $52,000 a year for? Like, what is that for?
One penny.
If you're now talking maintenance, then what was the other $1,000 a week for?
Of maintenance costs. So if they're running a 7,000 mile, a $7,000 a week gross, they're at least running 3,000 miles a week. Probably more, but at least 3,000. National average on maintenance is over 25 cents a mile. Let's say they do a little bit of themselves. Let's say they get it down to 20 cents a mile. All right. Well, 20 cents a mile, 3,000 miles, you've got another $600. So let's say it's only 500. Well, now we're down to $2,000, and that's your own truck, your own trailer. You're getting every penny of the revenue, and we haven't put anything back for major repairs. If the truck's down, how do you make your payment? And very quickly, $7,000 is now $2,000.
See, again, major repairs. So for some odd reason, I'm going back to this because this was a completely unknown. I just threw out $1,000 a week, which is a lot of money and I say that's how much the truck's going to cost for what? Like, you can't just say it's going to cost this much and then go over all of the costs for a truck. Like, what you have $52,000 you've just put back. What is that for?
Okay, now we've just officially entered Fantasyland. Listen carefully to what he just said. He says if they're running a $7,000 week, they're at least running 3,000 miles, probably more. Okay, fine, that's a setup. But then without skipping a beat, he literally says they're running a 7,000 mile, a 7,000 week. Okay.
I think that was a mistake, though, when he said that.
Hold on just for a second. Stop, all right? Because that's $1 a mile now. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is out here running 7,000 miles for $7,000 and calling that a great week. This is not trucking math. That's a math problem that tells on itself. So which is it? Is it 3,000 miles? It's 7,000 miles? Or probably more? Because when people start getting their stories and their numbers messed up, this is what happens. Because those are completely different business setups that you're talking about. You just can't bounce between numbers depending on which one helps your story fall apart faster.
So if they're running a 7,000 mile, a $7,000 a week gross.
Yeah, and he made a mistake and he corrected himself. He meant to say a $7,000 a week. He just said
they're at least running 3,000 miles a week.
Yeah, see what he mean? He didn't mean, so if I back that up, and I'm just trying to be fair with this, right? I'm just trying to be fair with this. He did not mean to say a 7,000 mile. He meant to say a $7,000. Where's my, right?
A 7,000
story fall apart faster.
So if they're running a 7,000 mile.
7,000 mile. He didn't say something like, hang on. I meant to say, he didn't correct. He just said, he just corrected himself.
A $7,000 a week gross. They're at least running 3,000 miles a week.
See what I'm saying? So that was just a mistake.
Probably more, but at least 3,000.
So right off the bat, the numbers don't even agree with themselves, it seems like. Now let's talk about the maintenance part. He says the national average is 25 cents a mile, maybe 20 cents if you do some work yourself. So he takes 3,000 miles times 20 cents and says that's another 600 gone. Then graciously knocks it down to 500. Here's the trick. He's taking a long-term fleet average and pretending it hits every single week. That's not how maintenance works.
True.
Trucks do not break every week. Maintenance is failure-based, not Friday-based. Some weeks cost money, some weeks cost nothing. But he's treating maintenance like it's a guaranteed weekly bill that shows up no matter what.
Now, should you be factoring for maintenance? Yes, you should be. Technically, you should be putting money away and factoring. Now, should you have it in a maintenance account or just have it in your overall business account? That's up to you. To be honest, that's up to you. It doesn't matter if you separate it for maintenance or if you leave it in the business and don't touch the business unless you need it to the end of the year. There's two ways to approach that.
And then he piles on the fear. We haven't put anything back for major repairs. What if the truck goes down? How do you make the payment? That's not math. That's scare tactics. He's counting routine maintenance, major repairs, downtime, and worst case scenarios, all at the same time as if they're happening every week. That's double counting fear. That's not how businesses operate. That's how you convince drivers that.
What are my thoughts on non-CDL box truck delivery companies that I see people trying to recruit for recently? Okay. So non-CDL box truck, I wish you'd call in, but that's okay. Non-CDL box. So a box truck can be either a CDL or non-CDL. So a CDL is over 26,000 pounds. Non-CDL is under. Okay. And it's based on weight. Gross vehicle weight of the vehicle. Just so you know. So there are a ton of companies that are not out there that are now pushing for non-CDL box truck companies. Buy your own truck, own your own business, be your own thing, and things like that. So there's a lot of business for that. There's a lot of last mile. As we moved away from going to the store and moving, no longer using malls compared to when we used to use malls and buy the stuff ourselves and bring it home in the trunks of our car. My wife can contest to this. We do a lot more online shopping and having things delivered to our homes. A lot of that is you're going to need box trucks to move single pallets and things like that. Do I believe it's a good business to get into, either last mile, final mile, home moving, things like that? I do feel it's a good avenue to go based on the location that you're at. For me, might not be so good, okay? Because I don't have a lot of warehouses here. I'm out here in the woods and things like that. If you're in Buffalo, New York, different, better opportunities. I think one of the things you have to do is research the options you have for box truck, understand the business that you want to get in with box truck before falling for the hype of a video that you see on YouTube. So in regards to box truck, you're going to want to do a little bit of research in regards to, one, what am I looking to do with that box truck, right? What am I looking, am I looking to do home deliveries? Am I looking to move furniture? Am I looking to do last mile? Am I looking to do, warehouse to warehouse? What are my opportunities that I can do here with that box truck? That's the first thing. Second thing you're going to want to look at before you jump into anything like that is understand what the costs are going to be for the truck, what the costs are going to be for insurance. Even though you don't have a CDL, what criteria does that put you in regards to weight and things like that? What is, understand how can I afford this? Can I afford the insurance on this aspect of things? And understand business also. I don't think it's something that you can just, and a lot of people do, but I don't think it's something you can just jump right into. And I see this a lot. I'll see a lot of people just jump right into this, not understanding how much the costs are, not knowing their numbers, not knowing any of this. Buy the truck, get insurance, get it, where they can get a COI, which is a certificate of insurance, so that they can start to look at the load boards and then find out that it's not paying what they thought and they can't make any money. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that recruiting for something, when you're recruiting for something, those people are trying to get people into an industry that you might not drift towards naturally. Military, truck driving, right? And there's a lot of recruiters for these positions. So you've got to be careful on what the recruiter's going to tell you, and you're going to want to do a lot of research in the area that you're in first to determine if you can be profitable with how much your insurance is going to be. Do the business. Like, before anybody, a legitimate business people, this is what, when I talk about, tariffs and stuff like that, and people start to have discussions in regards to our business, is manufacturing coming back? No, it takes time. It might take a year of research before anybody actually, before anybody decides to move their manufacturing to the United States, because they're going to determine the best place to put that business. They're going to determine the best location to be able to, start a manufacturing. They're going to look at how many people are in that area, what the cost of living is in that area. Am I going to have to pay $15 an hour, or am I going to have to pay $12 an hour? How many people is this area already densely populated with jobs where I'm going to have to pay a lot of money to pull people out of those jobs to put them in my job? Like, you're going to have to do a lot of this research to be able to open up a business. And that's what investors do. So before looking at something as the person that's going to make money, look at it as an investor. And would you invest, and what information would you need to make that investment? But that being said, I got to check out of here because Tuesdays I have to duck out here a little bit early, at least for now. But I appreciate you guys swinging in. And I will be back tomorrow to just do my regularly scheduled broadcast where we will talk a little bit of politics, current events, and things like that. But make sure that if you want to watch the rerun tomorrow, you got to be a 99-cent member. You can watch the live version, no problem. You don't have to be a member. But it goes after that. I'm trying to spit some facts, and Mondays and Fridays, Tuesdays and Fridays will be logistics and stuff like that, and some learning and some teaching, and then outside of that, we'll do on other days. That being said, I'm out.
Hello, Sage. This is Cody, or how? Wait a minute. Is my name Cody or Colby? I'm not really sure. So I will. There, in fact, internally, hang on a second, god damn it, I'm trying to, wait a minute, I think your name might be Sully. I don't fucking know what your goddamn real name is. Alright, give me a call back. Wait a minute. Sage. I'm sorry. Please don't record this.